For Eric J on Sports, I'm Eric J, and this is what I think. Cincinnati Bengals first-round draft pick Shemar Stewart is holding out of camp, refusing to sign his contract that's being offered by the team. Now, that's not strange or bizarre because draft picks hold out all the time. But since 2011, the NFL has saw to it that they made sure that there'd be no real reason for first-round draft picks to hold out because of a rookie wage standard. First-round rookies would be paid a certain amount of money over 4 years, and the entire contract is fully guaranteed. And the reason the NFL did that was because they wanted the first-round draft picks to get into camp and start working with their teams as quickly as possible. So if you know how much you're going to make before you go in, and that contract is fully guaranteed, then you have no real reason not to sign the deal. Unless the team that you were drafted by decides they want to add some new language to your contract. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals know how much they're supposed to pay Stewart, and Stewart knows how much he's supposed to get. So the Bengals and Stewart are not haggling over money. What they're haggling over is contract language. Now, if the entire contract is fully guaranteed for a certain amount of money and he already knows how much money he's going to get, what's the problem? Well, the problem is this. The Bengals want to add a morals clause to the contract. If Stewart gets in trouble for any reason in any way, on the field or off the field, then that would void the guarantees in the contract. Now, there's nothing wrong with adding a morals clause to a contract. Organizations do it all the time, whether it's sports organizations or corporate organizations. There's always a, hey, if you get in trouble, we can go back on this. But in the rookie wage scale contracts of the NFL, that doesn't happen, particularly when, as Stewart says, the 2024 draft picks that were selected in the first round didn't have to deal with the morals clause in their contracts, so why all of a sudden does Shemar Stewart have to? Now, before I got ready to record this, I did some research. I looked some things up because I wanted to know. Has Shemar Stewart ever been in trouble? Has Shemar Stewart caused any problems or given any reason for the Bengals to think that he might be a problem such that they would need to institute a morals clause in his contract stating that if he got in trouble in any way, they could void the deal. Now, I could see that with somebody like an Antonio Brown. I could see that with some other player who may have gotten in trouble with the law or who may have carried some marijuana over the border or who may have done something simple. But I did my research. I wanted to be sure. And I did not find any instance where Shemar Stewart had gotten in trouble on the field, off field with the law, or for any other reason. If it's there, I didn't find it. So my question is, why do the Bengals feel like they need to institute this situation to his contract? I don't know, and I won't know, because the Bengals aren't going to tell me. But Stewart feels like it's a travesty. Stewart feels like it's a slap in his face, because if he hasn't given them a reason to suspect that he might get in trouble on the field or off the field with the law or in some other way, then why institute the morals clause? Why not just give him the standard contract, let him sign it, and let him get into camp? Because the Bengals do that. Every year, the Bengals have 1 or 2 players holding out, and they have to deal with contract issues. There was a problem with the Bengals paying Joe Burrow, their top quarterback. If people look at quarterbacks in the league, they will say that the top 4 quarterbacks in all of football, in some order, are Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, and Joe Burrow. And most people ranking quarterbacks put Burrow above Herbert as the 3rd best quarterback in the league right now. So if you've got the 3rd best quarterback in the league, you don't have Mahomes, you don't have Jackson. The sad part is all 4 of those quarterbacks are in the AFC, which means they're going to beat each other up, and they're not always going to get to the Super Bowl each year. But if you've got at best or at worst the 3rd best quarterback in the league, seemingly there's no reason why you would come up with where you would say, you know what, Joe, let's take a little longer to iron out this contract. Now, if you've got a Trey Hendrickson, probably one of the 2 or 3 best defensive linemen in football, the man who led the league in sacks last year, there would be no reason why you would say, you know what, Trey, let's get you into camp. We still have a Super Bowl window that we could get into. The Chiefs look vulnerable. The Ravens look vulnerable. We can do this before the Chargers get better and before the Broncos get better, and before the Raiders get better, and before any of these other teams in the NFC get better. We can do this. So let's get you into camp. But for some reason, Trey Hendrickson is also not signed right now. So the Bengals are bungling with their contracts, particularly with the contract of Shemar Stewart, because Stewart was supposed to be the guy that was supposed to make Hendrickson better. But if you don't have Hendrickson in camp and you don't have Stewart in camp, your new defensive coordinator does not have the tools that he thought he was going to have to make the defense be a match for the offense so that they would have a chance against the Chiefs and the Ravens. So the Bengals are screwing this up and they're bungling this. But what I read in my research is that Shemar Stewart has options. Now, if Shemar Stewart were to decide, hey, forget this, I'm going to go to the CFL and play just to stay in football shape until this thing could be ironed out. If he did that, then the Bengals would hold his rights for 3 years. So if he goes to the CFL for 3 years and plays, then in the 4th year, he would be a free agent. But if he goes to the CFL and plays 1 or 2 years, then he still belongs to the Bengals, which means he still has to face this same issue. He could force the Bengals to trade him, but he was the 17th overall pick in the draft. So what kind of assets would a team want to give up to get the 17th overall pick in the draft? A lot of teams would want him, but it would cost a lot of teams a lot of money and a lot of assets, and it might be difficult to trade for somebody that high after the draft. And the trade would have to happen before August 5th, so there's not a lot of time to get something like this done. The other option for Shemar Stewart would be he could declare that he's going to go back into the draft and be drafted again in 2026, at which point the Bengals would no longer hold his rights and he could be drafted by any franchise except the Bengals, which means that if he were on the board and he were the 5th best player on the board and the Bengals had the 5th worst record in the league and were going to get the 5th pick, they would have to pass over him and pick somebody else, and the number 6 team would end up with Shemar Stewart. That's the option. But if you think back to 2011, then Shemar Stewart has another option, because the reason for the standardized, fully guaranteed rookie wage scale contracts was because these guys were coming out of college with no money, and so the league wanted to be sure that these guys got their signing bonus as quickly as possible. But now with NIL, Shemar Stewart has a couple of $1 million in his pocket, which means that he doesn't have to do anything because he already has money. He doesn't have to sign the Bengals contract, like it or not. He doesn't have to threaten to go to the CFL or do something else like that. He can just sit and wait because he's already got money in his pocket. And if he's got smart enough representation, they can help him maximize the money he has so that until the Bengals decide to give him what he wants, he doesn't give them what they want, which is him on the field in uniform on the side opposite Trey Hendrickson. So Stewart has options. And from what I'm figuring out and from what I'm reading and from what I'm coming to understand, the Bengals are all wrong in this. If they didn't do it last year and they didn't do it the year before and they haven't done it through time with their first round picks, why do it now with this guy? It doesn't make sense to me. And hopefully this story is to be continued. Remember to like and share this video and subscribe to this channel, and visit the Eric J. on Sports website, and follow me on Facebook at Eric J. on Sports 1 and on Instagram and Twitter at Eric J. on Sports. And for Eric J. on Sports, I'm Eric J. and this is what I think.